I'm Nancy from your Yoga Flow, and it's a very gray, wet, dark Friday here in Vancouver. So I'm quite happy to be inside and here with you today for the next little bit of time. And I thought today what I'm going to do is unpack Shavasana and look at it quite specifically in relationship to the 200-hour online training practicum requirements. So the first thing I'd like to say is Shavasana is one of those love-hate practices I find through. I've been teaching for 20 something years, 21 years, maybe 22 years, and I have students who absolutely love Shavasana, and I have students who, after practicing for years and years and years, still hate Shavasana. So I think it is one of those kind of love-hate practices, probably because it can be really hard. Shavasana can be a very challenging practice. So I think as teachers, we can endeavor to make it a palatable experience. We can endeavor to make it a sacred, special ritual, even if we're teaching online. So we can do everything possible to help our students love Shavasana. So Shavasana, when I did my training many, many years ago, we were taught within an hour and a half class to leave 15 minutes for Shavasana. And out of the 15 minutes, we were guiding the students for probably 5 minutes and then allowing them 10 minutes in silence. For the practicum requirements, where you only have an hour class, so you're given 10 minutes, and within that 10-minute time frame, we're asking for 7 minutes of silence. So that allows you 3 minutes to set your students up and to bring them out from Shavasana. But let's backtrack a little bit, and I just wanted to share with you when I started yoga. I wasn't super young. I was in my early 30s, and I was doing my master's degree, and Anna loves Shavasana. Awesome. I was a pretty wound up, anxious person who lived in a very sympathetic state in my nervous system, very reactive. So the first yoga class that I remember taking, at the end of the class, at the end of Shavasana, I was just like blown away that I could actually feel that way, first of all, that I could feel this more relaxed, grounded state, and that I was the one, I mean, the teacher helped, but that I was able to actually cultivate that state for myself. Before that, I relied on, drugs and alcohol to calm my body and my mind. So it was actually pretty mind-blowing for me, and I think that's really what sort of propelled me on the path of becoming a yoga teacher. I thought, okay, if I can cultivate this state within me, I want to help other people find this as well. So that the key in Shavasana, not only is it an opportunity for the body, the mind, the systems to absorb the practice of yoga. It's like it trickles down into our cellular body when we allow the proper time for Shavasana. But it's the beginning of possibly changing your pattern of living in your nervous system. So there's more and more information around how we, especially in the trauma therapy world, of the understanding how we can get locked in nervous system patterns. So we could be locked in the sympathetic nervous system pattern of very reactive, or the dorsal nervous system pattern of sort of collapse and shut down, or anywhere between and within those two that are extremes. So the science, the evidence is showing that we can actually repattern our nervous system through lots of different tools, and many of them are tools we already know as yoga teachers. It's like those rishis thousands of years ago got it, and for whatever reason we lost it, and now we're sort of starting to find it again, which, I mean, it's crazy, but I'm really thankful that all these tools of yoga are just serving us more and more and more in this crazy contemporary world that we're in. The proper time for Shavasana, we had this discussion the other day as the teacher group, and like I was taught, it was you needed at least 8 to 10 minutes for Shavasana to really be the proper experience of Shavasana. Angela studied in India, and her teachers told her 7 minutes. So I think that 7 minutes, which is required within your practicum, is probably a really great magic number. And that time is for your mind and body to absorb the practice. So I don't know if any of you have been to like I think it's hot yoga practices where the teacher will just leave the room and it's kind of like, yeah, like Papa Shavasana. They're kind of losing out on the gem. Like the Shavasana for me really is like I'm not really a sweet person, but it's like the icing on the cake, or like it's just like the beauty of the practice is at the end in Shavasana. So I think it's really important as teachers that we practice teaching Shavasana so that we can give our students this really beautiful experience of hopefully experiencing that sense of equanimity through all their states. So let's go sort of through the practicum setup. You're required to leave at least 10 minutes for Shavasana, but within that 7 minutes of silence. So that gives you 3 minutes to get your students set up. And the way that you would do that is to suggest like props. If they have support for under their knees, if they have a sweater they want to put on, or a blanket, because your body temperature does drop when you're lying and resting. So if you were teaching live, like when I used to teach live classes, this was a time where I would go and assist my students with props. I used to cover them in blankets, give them eye pillows. I could do everything I could to make them super comfortable. When you're suggesting props online on your practicum, it might be worth noting for students who like to support their head that they're not pushing their head forward. Like sometimes I see students and they want to put a bolster right under their head or lots of cushions. We want the spinal curves to be as neutral as possible. So I always say if you're going to support your head, put it on the hard part of the skull, not on the cervical spine. So first of all, we take a minute, maybe a minute or less in the practicum to set it up, to get them the props, and to suggest ways that they can lie. So if they don't have props and their lower back is a bit stiff or uncomfortable, they might want to be in Shavasana with their knees bent, feet on the floor. Just having the legs splayed out, which for many bodies feels awesome, for some bodies, especially, like I said, back issues, that can be super uncomfortable. So you could suggest those two options. It's nice to have the arms in a more sort of floppy way so the shoulders are relaxed. So typically they're a little bit out to the side with the palms face up. But it's also, some students like having palms on belly. So those kind of options of setting up the actual pose or asana of Shavasana. And then I think it's really important to offer your students a little guidance into Shavasana. That could be a few words. I've heard some teachers maybe read a little, like a poem or a piece that speaks to them, that is evocative of relaxation. When I taught live classes, I often relied on the music as a way to transition students into Shavasana. I find teaching Zoom classes, the music doesn't work with the system I have, but maybe for you it does. And just being mindful if you choose music that it is the right, I'm not musical, but it's the right tone. It's not something uppy, that it's something that really helps to relax and ground your person, and that the sound's not too loud. And then once you guide your students into Shavasana, it's your job to hold space for your students. Even if you're teaching live, it's still your job as the teacher to hold space. And what that means is to somehow attune to your students. And that can happen online, like through the practicum being recorded, where you sit and you really get anchored into your being, so that you're super grounded and you're sharing that grounded energy with your students. And I know it's tricky because of timing, and it's kind of uncomfortable just to be sitting there on camera, but it's really important that you are practicing grounding and holding space, and that you're not, getting up and checking your clock and looking around, because, maybe one of your students is looking at you. If you're teaching Zoom classes, they might be looking to see, well, what's the teacher doing? And B, even though you're in a recording or you're teaching Zoom, you're still energetically holding space, connecting to your students. So that's why we encourage you to sit up for Shavasana. If you're just lying there on your back, for me personally, it's like when we teach a yoga class, it's not our yoga class. Like I'm teaching and going through the poses, but it's not really my practice. I'm there for my students. I'm there in service to my students. So in Shavasana, if I'm just lying there on my back, for me personally, I don't feel like I'm serving my students. So when I teach on Zoom, or when I get the opportunity to teach real human beings live, I sit and I do my best to be super grounded and to hold space. I used to have a practice, I'm just remembering this now, in live classes, where when my students were in Shavasana, I would go around the room in my mind and name the person and send them love, and name the person and send them love. Like, very intentional with my energy to my students in Shavasana. So then you have that silent period, so you're not talking, you're holding space. And then you also want to allow some time to ease your students out. So it's not okay, Shavasana is over, let's go. We want to, as slowly as we bring them in, we want to slowly bring them out. So initiating, like I often say, let's coming back to your body, moving your head, moving your fingers, your toes, very gentle movements. And then I always, always, always guide students over onto their side into fetal position for that moment to pause. So again, we're not rushing them out, and then to use, the force of the hands to bring them up to sit any way that they want to sit, and to take a moment to also close the class, your practicum class, so that it's a very intentional weaving in and out and closing for Shavasana. So that's the practicum requirements and a little bit of my personal take on Shavasana. So I thought for the next bit of this Facebook Live, I would guide you into Shavasana so you just know how I do it. So pretending that we just had a yoga class together, I would invite you to get whatever you need to be comfortable in Shavasana. If you have a sweater or a blanket to wrap around you because your body temperature will drop, to get comfortable on the ground. If you have any support, it's really lovely to put something at the back of the legs to help the lower back, so a bolster or some cushions. If you are supporting your head, please be mindful that you're not changing the natural curve of your neck. So put whatever support you have at the base of your skull. Find ease in your body. So arms could be floppy at the side, or palms might rest on your belly. Your legs could be out in a very relaxed, open position. So we're not trying to set the legs in any position, like in or out, just very relaxed. And then if you're not using a bolster, and you might want to bend your knees and put your feet on the ground to support your back. Once you're settled, close your eyes. And just let the next few exhalations help you to let go of your practice. Let go of your past. Let go of your future. So that you can fully arrive here for Shavasana, this practice of surrender, of letting go. So the Sanskrit term Shavasana is translated into corpse pose. So it's literally the experience of pretending to die, to completely let go, of any ideas about who we are, to let go of any patterns of being, to really sort of like clean this slate of being to rest in a very neutral space in mind, neutral space in body, neutral space through all of our layers. Softening around the eyes. Feel the eyeballs soften and sink into the skull. Relaxing around your mouth. Unclenching your jaw. Softening your throat, your belly. Unclenching through the buttocks. Feeling the vertebrae of the spine from the neck to the tail, vertebra by vertebra, sinking into the earth like heavy stones, melting into ground, melting into ground. Allowing the whole back body to sink in and receive the support of the ground beneath you. And at the same time, allowing for spaciousness, openness through for the front body to connect and receive the energy of sky, of cosmos above you. Feeling contact through the back of the head, the back of the arms and hands, back of the shoulders, into the back. Feeling contact through the back of the pelvis, back of the legs to heels. Settling, sinking, letting your body fully relax and be open to receive the deep peace, the shanti of Savasana. And then after our 7 minutes of silence, I would slowly start to guide students out. So slowly rolling your head side to side, moving fingers, moving toes, imagining this is the very first time you awakened, that sort of curious open state of moving fingers, moving toes, moving head. You could bend your knees, give them a hug into your chest, and roll onto your side. So for me, it's fine if you roll right or left. Come onto your side to curl up into fetal position. Pausing here. And then use the push of the hands into ground to come up and sit in a way that is comfortable for you. You could have your eyes open or your eyes closed. But we'll just share a moment of sitting here together in silence so you can notice what you notice. Observe how you feel at the end of Shavasana at the end of your practice. And then I invite you to draw the palms together in Anjali Mudra, in this gesture of giving thanks to our practice. And if we were together in class, I would end with a bow of namaste, but we can just open eyes. And I don't know if you had questions. I think you can type them in. I just wanted to give a couple of minutes at the end if anybody had questions. But so that's the way that some version of that. I always guide students into Shavasana in a different way. Sometimes I used to always read, I have a little pocket Pema children book, which I really love. I used to always read a quote from her, either at the beginning as I was guiding students in or at the end as they were coming out. So you'll find your own unique ways, tools for making Shavasana again like this very sacred ritual for your students. It's such a gift for your students to have this time to rest, to balance their nervous system, to perhaps repattern their nervous system to a more balanced state. If you do have any questions after, you can always put them on the Facebook page. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you for spending time with me today on Friday, and I hope you have a awesome rest of the week and weekend, and that you enjoy teaching and practicing Shavasana. Thank you, Lois. Yasmin, you're in Vancouver. Awesome. Nice. Yeah, I love that you love Shavasana, Yasmin. Your students will really benefit from that, from your love. Yeah, nice. Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to turn it off now. So, bye for now.